Hi, thanks for joining The Breakdown, the show that delves into an extremely wide range of different topics of importance to humanity and discusses complex and unique ideas and concepts not often discussed in the media. I'm James Sayer, your host, and we've got Jordan Pierce back with us tonight. How you doing, Jordan?
Doing quite well, thanks, James. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks, Jordan.
Excellent. Thanks for having me on again.
Hey, always a pleasure. So let's get to our topic tonight. We're talking about artificial intelligence and artificial general intelligence. Now, if you've been paying attention to the news, you've probably been hearing about artificial intelligence, AI, which has exploded in its use in recent years. Now, there's been talk of people losing their jobs to AI, possibly one day eliminating most work for humans, even potentially, and even machines possibly taking over the world, possibly destroying humanity. Concerns from serious experts, even in the field of AI. So we wanted to get into the details of AI and separate fact from fiction, and also give greater clarity and understanding to the four different types of AI that have either been developed or are in development. Now, reactive and limited memory, those two are already in development, right? Theory of mind and self-awareness or consciousness, these are in development but have not been achieved. Now, if these two undeveloped forms of AI do come into existence, then a machine could achieve artificial general intelligence, where it could essentially think, learn, and function like a human, and then likely outpace human cognition and performance very quickly, perhaps to unimaginable degrees. But we're not near that yet. Some experts say these new AI innovations are just a few years away, but others question whether we will ever be able to program a machine to think and learn like a human. And even if we could, should we? Are the risks of doing so too great? These new technological advancements have already had a profound impact on our lives and could likely revolutionize human life in more ways than we can imagine. So we're going to talk about all of that tonight here on The Breakdown. So, Jordan, talking about AI here, just from a basic level, as most people understand it, right? We can explain at a basic level that artificial intelligence in general is basically some type of a software program, right? Or machine that performs certain limited functions in a similar capacity to a human. And today they're everywhere, right? So, started like around in the 1950s, roughly speaking. Alan Turing was one of the early people talking about the potential for artificial intelligence and smart computers. In 1950, he published Computing Machinery and Intelligence, and it's one of the first papers to really discuss the possibility of having intelligent machines. And he was a mathematician in England, and so initially, early computers around that time of Turing they couldn't store commands, right? They had no memory. They could only execute commands, and there was slow development of computers and AI technology because of the extreme cost. Back in the 50s, to lease a computer cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000 a month just to lease the basic types of computers that they had back then that had no memory.
Like their dollars a month?
$200,000 in 1950, right?
So like $1.3 trillion a week today.
Something ridiculous in today's dollars, right? But advancements, as they continued to work on computers and developing AI, a lot of the advancements occurred, especially due to when they started improving the ability, like with the microchip, the ability to store more and more information on, a smaller and smaller, on a smaller and smaller chip. You could put more and more information in a smaller and smaller space, and this resulted in computers becoming faster and cheaper and being able to store a lot more data between the 1950s and the 1970s. Then there were further advancements in the 80s and 90s. In the 80s, Edward Feigenbaum introduced what they call expert systems, which is a program that basically mimics decision-making processes of human experts. So that was in the 80s. Also, there was a development of deep learning, which is a type of machine learning that teaches computers to process data in a way that's inspired by the human brain. It sort of mimics the way the human brain functions. That was developed. Then in 1997, we have Deep Blue, which was a computer program that beat Garry Kasparov, one of the great world champions of chess, beat him at chess. That was in 1997, and that program, Deep Blue, is designed to react to different strategic scenarios and react to them, but it has absolutely no memory. It doesn't remember. It only operates in the present. Then there was Dragon Systems the same year, 1997, which was a speech recognition system that was introduced on Windows. Then in 2010, the computer program Watson, which is a question answering computer that uses natural language, so you can ask Watson a question and he'll answer. That was introduced in 2010. In 2011, Watson beat Jeopardy champions Brad Rutter and Ken Jennings at Jeopardy in a competition in 2011. So there have been all these really, you see these developments where the AI was getting more advanced and the technology was getting closer and closer to, a style similar to human thinking. Right? That all started back with Alan Turing and people like him theorizing that, that basically from the human brain, right? We use information, we store information, and then we use reason to make sense of that information to make decisions. So why couldn't a computer do that? Why can't we program a machine, right? Give it enough data and program it to use reason to be able to make these decisions in a more efficient and highly, much faster way than we could. So from all that, that's kind of an introduction of, the general developments of the last 70 plus years, getting us now to a place where there's basically 4 types of artificial intelligence, right? And this is according to the Emerging Information Technology Conference, EITC, and is pretty consistent with what we're seeing with a lot of different technology companies and organizations that are dealing with AI and machine learning. That they recognize these 4 types of AI. It's not universal. There's different. Some people have different concepts, but this is a pretty good model for understanding the basic AI as it currently exists overall. So the 4 basic types. Number 1 are reactive machines. Okay, reactive machines. That's the oldest type and most fundamental form of an AI system. They're very limited. They're just programmed to make advanced strategic decisions in the moment. They have no memory. So it's like Deep Blue, when it was playing chess, it's was obviously able to beat one of the great chess players in the world, but it has no memory at all. It doesn't remember any of that. It doesn't remember its last move even. So their inability to create memories or use past experience ensures basically that it can't learn. It doesn't really learn. All right? It's expert in the moment of doing this, one strategic action, but it can't learn or improve over time. So those are reactive machines. Limited memory, that's most of what we have going on, most of the AI we currently have, where artificial intelligence learns from the past, right? They learn from the past and they build up. They use a form of machine learning that's been programmed into them to build up, empirical knowledge from their experience by observing actions or by observing data. Now, this type of AI uses historical observational data combined with pre-programmed information to make predictions and perform complex classification tasks. And like I said, it's the most widely used type of AI today. With AI, however, AI with limited memory, as the name suggests, is still limited, right? The information used by self-driving cars is temporary and not kept in the car's long-term memory. That's one example. So there's actually two types of limited memory AI. One, which is the more common currently, is the pattern recognition and prediction, where that form of limited memory AI, it recognizes patterns and then it can predict, from those patterns what is going to happen, right? Based on its programming. That's one. The other is the newer generative AI, which is not to be confused with general AI or artificial general intelligence. Generative AI is a form of limited memory AI where it creates original content like pictures or news articles or whatever type of text or even music based on deep learning programming that they've been trained on. And generative AI relies on two different neural networks that have been developed. One that functions as a generator that creates new data, and the other neural network that evaluates the data that's been created. So those two types, limited AI and reactive machines, are currently in existence. Most common, like I said, is limited memory AI. And so there's also theory of mind. That's the third kind. Not yet developed. It's in development, but more complex. So in this next, more advanced class, basically theory of mind involves a computer being able to understand people and other things and objects in the world as they relate to each other, and to be able to understand human thoughts and emotions and how they affect you. And this would require a computer to be able to understand human emotions, human behavior, to be able to understand social cues, and to be able to adapt to all of that accordingly.
Much to read body language, like things like that. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. Yes. Theory of mind. But to understand too, right, what fear is, right? When you think about emotions, how do you teach a computer that's not of organic material, right? That has never been alive. How do you teach them what fear is?
With a pitcher full of water.
right. But so they know they could be shut down, right?
Yeah.
Theoretically speaking, right, a computer can be programmed to know that they could be immediately shut down by the operator permanently or destroyed, whatever. But do they experience fear? Could they experience of being shut down? Right? There's no physical pain, right? They could experience, like, all organic beings, right? Whether you're talking about humans or animals, whatever, we all have, sensors, trillions, billions of, sensors throughout all our different cells in our body that, are based on, sensory information, much of that trying to avoid pain or injury, right? Based on, evolutionary survival mechanism.
Well, sure, but but if we're going to, assign, something like, artificial general intelligence, like, if it's going to be sentient, like, isn't part of being sentient like attempting to preserve one's life?
At least for humans, yeah.
Well, right. So, but like, as far as like life as we know it, but most animals, if you act like
how do you program that into something that's not alive?
Well, right, exactly, though. So, but that's the thing, is that, like, you don't program that into, like, animals any more than you do it into anybody else,
Right. I'm not saying it can't be.
Well, I'm just saying, like, living beings preserve their lives. So, wouldn't that be part as far as, like, being able to teach a computer fear, so, like, if you were to say, I'm going to end your life, then, if part of its programming were to, have that sentience of, like, preserving my own life, then if you were to say, I'm going to end your life, it would presumably be able to feel something akin to, better defend myself.
I mean, I think you could program. Certainly, you could program a computer, an advanced machine, to defend itself, right, from being destroyed or shut off.
But to actually feel the emotion.
That in itself is dangerous, right? I mean, very dangerous. Okay, so yeah, we're getting into good stuff here, but I want to keep moving because we didn't talk about the fourth type, which is directly related to theory of mind, self-awareness or consciousness, which is a further extension of the theory of mind, right? So if you're going to be aware of others, you also, there's this, there's also the consciousness aspect of being not only aware of others, but of yourself, self-awareness, right? And your experience in the world, and that you're aware that you exist and that you experience that existence. Is that even programmable? Some people think it is, and it's just a matter of time. There's some people very bullish about it, estimating it could be just a few years from now. There are others who say it's doable, but it's decades, perhaps 50 years off in the future. And there are others who think that the human consciousness is so complex, it may not ever be possible. But we have to consider it, right? I mean, because you can see already how quickly AI is advancing, right? So we've got two types of AI that are currently functioning, right? The limited data form and the older reactive version. Theory of mind and self-awareness AI are still in development, right? But yeah, so if we achieve theory of mind, AI, and self-awareness, then you've basically got artificial general intelligence, where a machine can basically think and learn and solve problems, essentially like a human, right? And then likely again outpace us very quickly once it adapts, once it learns, once it achieves that, and who knows how quickly and how far it could go, right? And I think that's another concern, is that, okay, so you create something that's self-aware, right? And you're talking about, we were talking about, if you're going to make it be like a human, you have to program in fear. And I question the morality of that, right?
It's like raising children.
So, a machine, like, sometimes maybe, there's that question of, I don't know. It's like we should definitely develop the technology. We shouldn't shy away from it, but there may be limitations to how far we should take it. Like maybe we should, pull the reins before we go too far. That maybe sentience isn't something we want to try and develop. That may just be going too far, simply because if we're able to create one, there's the ethical moral consideration of what business do we have creating something that can think and feel, right? Mm-hmm. When we don't even understand that process completely ourselves. Now we're going to create a being that can do that. We're going to create a being that can think and experience suffering based on our programming. Is that a moral action, right? And what are the risks to that? If we create a super machine, right, a cybernetic organism, right, that can, solve problems at a super and basically function at a general level, right, of doing all kinds of different things like a person does. I'm going to write this article, and I'm going to go take out the trash. I'm going to go work out. I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to get something to eat. Right? All these different things a person has to do that, artificial, a computer, a machine, a robot with AGI would be able to do all that stuff. But to program something to have fear, to be afraid, and for it to know what it's like to be human. And I think there's limits on that. When we still don't even fully understand our own humanity, to try and program that into a machine that can't truly experience humanity. I don't think we can fake it, right? No matter how good we are at developing a machine, right? How brilliant our data scientists are, and computer programmers and engineers, they won't be able to create something that, like humans, that have evolved over the course of, at the end of almost 4 billion years of evolution on Earth. Right? If they do create something conscious, it's going to be different. It's not going to be human. It may be similar to humans in certain capacities, right? In memory and the ability to reason or to be conscious, but it won't be human. And I don't know that it'll be possible it might be able to mimic human feelings and emotions, right? And thoughts, but they won't be generated, right? They'll be generated from a completely different system, from a completely different process, right? They won't have come from, organic evolution. They'll have been assembled, like a machine, not from living cells, right? But from, all sorts of different, inorganic materials. That's a different orientation. To create something that's sentient but isn't really alive. I think there's a lot of fundamental dangers there, right? And there's been a lot of, ever since, like the Terminator came out in the early 80s, right? There's been this sort of awareness, and probably even before then with some people.
Well, yeah, and I suppose, like with the internet and everything like that, they say, once it's on the internet, it's out there forever, which isn't necessarily always technically true, but I feel like, an AI like that would have been able to like back some piece of itself up somewhere, as far as like, if we're talking about, making it go away or what have you, if it did really retain sentience and like attempt to preserve itself, which I just keep going back to for some reason, like, along with the Skynet thing you were just mentioning, it's a thing that it's the thing that people want to think about when they're thinking about AI a lot of the time. Like, how could it go wrong? You go straight to the skulls.
Right. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of like engineers and computer scientists who think that talk about like the dangers of AGI are really overblown. And there's others that think it's not overblown at all. There's not universal agreement by any stretch. And I think that's just because there's just too much we don't know, right? Even now, so much of how the human brain functions and how consciousness is derived in the human brain, there's just so much unknown.
Well, and I think that's why a lot of these experts probably aren't that worried about it either, because it's like we are nowhere near the phase of even needing to be thinking about being worried about that on top of everything else we're trying to worry about while we're developing AI.
Right. Okay. That's a good point. So, okay, but the other side of that is, okay, so we don't fully understand what we're working with. We don't even fully understand what it is we're trying to recreate. If we're trying to recreate something, trying to create something that's self-aware.
Well, right, but it's in those sci-fi examples that we think of where the computer comes alive. Terminator, 2001 are the first two that come to mind for me, as well as I guess System Shock and System Shock 2, but those are video games. But in the thing that they have in common is that the AI decides that it is the dominant life form and going to be that. And it's always through some, Deus Ex Machina, literally in this case, sort of thing that happens where just like the computer system then went haywire and gained sentience, and now it wants to kill all humans. And so, I mean, like, they're providing a lot of the things that we're like working toward as far as machines being able to do, but like the thing that makes them go insane is that unattainable, just like kind of MacGuffin sort of and then it went crazy and killed everybody sort of thing. So, again, another reason not to be as worried about it as you want to be after you watch the good Terminator movies.
I don't know. I think I'm going the other way right now. I think I'm more worried about it than before. I think the reason, well, anytime somebody tells me to calm down, and most of the times I've heard somebody say, "Calm down, don't worry, it's not that far." It's like it's just getting ready to happen. Like that usually never turns out. Somebody's like reassurances almost always turn out to be bullshit, right? It's like just because something's worked out so far is no guarantee it's going to continue to work out. There's too much we don't understand. I think we're messing with something that's just so far beyond our comprehension that there's more than a heavy dose of like human arrogance involved in our pursuit. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't develop this stuff, but we need to be extremely careful about it. And yeah, the government's going to need to be like closely watching this. All governments throughout the world and intergovernment, like the UN, intergovernmental organizations, I think they've all got to be involved. With all the companies that are. I think everybody needs to work together on this and develop it very carefully because, like you said, a lot of people think we don't understand it. There's a lot we don't understand yet about human cognition. So the chances are of us being able to develop artificial general intelligence are not high. If it is, it's way down the road, decades at least. But then again, okay, if we're in there tinkering around and we're creating like neural networks that, that are patterned off, brain function, and operate in similar ways to the way humans think, it is possible also then, if we don't understand what we're doing, that we create it by accident.
Well, yeah, but that's one of those, just relying on chance to have something go so right that it eventually goes wrong. I mean,
well, so it's not necessarily a question of, well, it's just like more right or wrong, we should stay in control of it, right? That whatever gets developed, it shouldn't, there's a lot of stuff that is going to happen by accident. That's just part of the process of development and experimentation is the process of discovery. Oh, I didn't know it was going to do that. Well, this does this, and neat. We'll put this together, and that does that. And that's something new, really cool. And now we can use that. But if they do accidentally, since we are able to mimic it, we are able to mimic imperfect human behavior already through computer programs imperfectly, right? But we are able to do it. Some programs better than others, right? Certain chat bots are better than others, right? You got like Siri and Alexa that do a really good job as far as like answer questions for you or, getting your directions and things like that. They're limited roles, but they're really good at doing that, right? But that's one thing that's complex enough, but we're really good at doing that. But to say, all right, now we've got a robot that can function virtually in almost all capacities as a human, with some exceptions probably, right? Although people, they're going to develop sex robots. I mean, they already got them, right? They already got the sex bots, so that's old news. Sex bots already exist, I guess.
Yeah, but like, how good is the AI?
Right.
Sorry.
So that's probably where most of the money's going to go, right? It'll probably go to like.
Well,
sex
I mean,
AI bots.
Well, I mean, sex robots and like cyborg warriors,
That's where it's all gonna. Yeah, that's where it's gonna explode. Warfare
and sex. Yeah.
Yeah.
As usual.
the big draws.
The new syphilis, cool.
Yay. But I think that there's the issue of, all right, so if you create something that's sentient, something that is self-aware, right, that there have to be a lot of restrictions on how you do that, because I don't think you want to create something that can also suffer, that can feel pain. But if it's self-aware, that self-awareness has to exist, I guess, within a certain limited confine, to where it's not going to, if it fears it's going to get shut off or updated or something, and it doesn't want that, that it's not going to do something crazy, right? And I guess that's the thing, is that they don't understand. There's so much they don't understand. So I was reading this article in Vox. This is from July of 2023, this year. And it says, even the scientists who build AI can't tell you how it works. And there's a quote here at the top of the article. It says, we built it, we trained it, but we don't know what it is doing.
Again, it's like parenting.
Yeah. So just with something that could, I don't know, potentially destroy humanity. My kids aren't quite that bad.
Well, I mean, so far.
Right. Give them time.
Yeah, right. I mean, everybody comes out of their shell eventually.
Right. So they're still young. Who knows? But so if you ask like an AI researcher, like in this article here, his name's Sam Bowman. He's an AI researcher, and he says, if we open up something like Chat GPT or a system like it and look inside, you just see millions of numbers flipping around a few hundred times a second. And we just have no idea what any of it means. I think what you're talking about when you're talking about human cognition, which is what a lot of these programs are trying to mirror, right, is in the decision-making, systems, they're so complex, right? There's so many inputs. There's so many factors going on so quickly, whether that be in a computer or a human mind. How do you isolate all those factors and say, oh, this is the reason that so-and-so decided to do this, or this was the reason he felt that, right? Or this was the motivation for this, or these were the contributing factors that all led up to this decision. And that there's so many inputs happening so quickly that they don't even fully understand what the hell is going on in the systems that they've designed. So, yeah, on one side of it is, okay, well, this could take us a really long time, if ever. Maybe we're not able ever to reach, a self-awareness level, a theory of mind level. But then again, I think, well, if we don't understand it, if you just keep tinkering around long enough, right, that we might create something new that is a form of consciousness, even if it's like you don't know what you don't know until it happens, right? I think if you're working at that level of ignorance, where the people that are designing it don't fully understand how the decisions are being made, that it becomes very difficult to program in, right? You have to program all these restrictions, right? And this isn't just, we've been talking about AGI, right? The general intelligence of a sentient, robot or something. But there's lots of dangers just with regular limited memory AI right now. In that, bias can easily be programmed in by accident, right? In different AI systems, right? That like facial recognition technologies and things like that, or different types of systems that can be biased depending on, how the programs are entered. So there have been stories about where, certain systems are just, biased towards white people because they've been programmed mostly by white people, and that there's just a lot of biases that people don't like assumptions and things that they don't even think about, or cultural assumptions or other things, or just our own imperfect perception of reality as individuals, right? We're all flawed, operating imperfectly, basically constantly, learning from our own mistakes as we go, right? We're constantly learning from trial and error ourselves. And so we could potentially develop a machine that does that. But can we do it responsibly, right? To where it doesn't get out of control, right? Because I don't think a machine needs to develop sentience. I don't think it even needs to be aware to be a danger, right? We just have to get the programming wrong, so that the program doesn't value human life, that it doesn't respect racial diversity, that the program may perceive people of a minority group to be suspicious because of the way the programming was entered, and that they've already, like Chat GPT and other AI machines, make mistakes, right? There's a lot of these generative programs that are really good at creating different things like music or pictures or articles, but they still make mistakes because they're based off of imperfect information.
Right. Yeah. They can only do exactly what they're told.
They can learn, but their learning is still they have their own. They have been programmed to learn, right?
Right.
Follow and to develop a new understanding of a deeper understanding of information based on processing that information. But yeah, they're still working with imperfect information, imperfect programming, limited programming from the beginning. So yeah, I mean that's just
right. I mean,
like limit to our the imperfect programming put in by humans. So it's like we have to be extremely careful to make sure that AI doesn't end up. It's supposed to serve humanity, right? It's not supposed to enslave us.
Well, right, but I mean, like, along with the misleading news and things like that, I mean, like, if the AI is programmed to consume raw data and then make based on the amount of data and like weighting averages and whatnot, as I assume how like basically it would eventually like break things down. I mean, like, does it know when it's reading something where it's just like, okay, this is one of those like fake or like satirical or misleading sort of like news things that would also like potentially throw off its decision making ability?
Yeah, I think that's just a level of human complexity. You think about how much complexity there is to human thought and human interaction, and to be able to program that in to a machine that has never lived as a human or experienced life as a human, and then to ask them to understand those concepts, it's very difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible. I don't think we can do it perfectly, right? I think I hate to say impossible, but I think the best we can do is mimic it, right? What's the word I'm looking for? We can approximate it. It could be an approximation of humanity, perhaps, but it could never be human, right? Because it doesn't have human DNA. It doesn't have a human brain or human organs, or a human nervous system. It doesn't have a sex drive. Even if you have a sex bot, that's some sex drive that's not organic. I mean, it's programmed in.
Yeah, it's more plug and play.
Human, yeah, right. But it's not. It's programmed in by like a human designer to be like an approximate urge versus like a very real and one of the most powerful urges to every human on the planet, right? The urge to procreate, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you accurately, program things like that into a machine to where they understand it? And not only that, but then sort of also program in like ethical behavior of when, how to behave, how to ethically treat, how people need to be treated, right? Because whether it's AI or AGI, it's there for the service of humans, of people. So, and it's like the way things are, the way businesses are, right? The way scientists are. People want to develop things quickly. Everybody's in a race to develop the next new thing, right? There's a lot of excitement to see, can we, right? How far can we take AI? Can we make it? Can we achieve general intelligence? Can it achieve theory of mind and understand human emotions and be able to adapt, right, appropriately to human behavior and understand human behavior? I mean, you got people their whole lives that haven't figured that out, right? We're going to program. Okay, so think about it, all right? Think about, I don't know, I've known a few computer scientists and engineers in my time, and most of them were guys, a couple women, but they're all smart. But I wouldn't trust any of them to like program something to think autonomously, right, by themselves. That's, there's just too many biases that any individual could too easily program into something, and something of that level of complexity. It's the question of, maybe it's a good thing to have, maybe it should be developed, but it should be done carefully. It shouldn't be done recklessly. And the way a lot of businesses and companies work, tech companies is, and even scientists, is it's a race, right?
Mm-hmm.
To get there as fast as we can. And I think that's a mistake, right? It's like the movie Oppenheimer that's out now, all about the development of the nuclear bomb, right? That was all in a race to to win World War II, to beat the Germans to getting the bomb and then to ending the war by dropping it on the Japanese. They were in a huge race to do that, and they did it in a number of years. But then, right, there were a number of them, including obviously Oppenheimer, who after they did it and were, proud of it, then they came to regret it afterwards. And so I'm not saying that was a mistake, but it's a very serious thing, right? That you shouldn't just take willy-nilly, right? Like developing a technology like a nuclear weapon that can, potentially destroy the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking of that same level of potential danger, right? If something becomes like sentient and has the ability to outpace human thought and performance by orders of magnitude beyond our understanding, and doesn't does experience fear or experiences desire enough to do whatever it feels is necessary, right, to not be shut off, right? Like you said, if it's just simply been programmed to do whatever it takes to ensure that it continues to exist, right? And it becomes aware it's a program that exists. It's the most advanced program, the most advanced form of thought. Maybe it's not even a robot, right? Maybe it's just a program on a computer, but it becomes self-aware and becomes aware that it is, and becomes convinced that it is the highest level of consciousness that's ever existed in the universe and must be preserved at all costs, right? And if at any point it perceives humans to become a threat to that, right, would have no problem without the appropriate programming in place to restrict it, right, to begin to defend itself against humans, from shutting it off. Again, really, it is all about how the quality of the programming. I think you can look at us as computers in a way that have been programmed, right? Machines that function based on programming, programmed, by genetics and programmed by the environment. And between those two inputs, right, there's two large buckets of inputs, genetics and environment.
It's the firmware and the software.
Right. So, but that's been developed, organically through a process of evolution by nature over billions of years, versus us, throwing this together in a matter of decades, in pursuit of profit. Right.
Well, what is it?
Right. But I mean, like with nuclear weapons, we saw how horrible it was. We saw how deadly they were. And so, that at least has kept us from using it on each other since, 1945. We're aware of the extreme danger of nuclear weapons, but I don't think we're fully aware of like the potential, like not even to go Skynet, right? But just, and even like I said, like
even just how.
Yeah, but Hal, yeah. So Hal was definitely conscious, right? In 2001, he's definitely self-aware.
Yeah.
And he was definitely set on protecting himself, right? He had theory of mind. He was self-aware. But he was just in a machine. He couldn't walk around. He just basically was the ship, more or less.
Right. Which, I mean, like, it's potentially, depending on how you use it, a lateral move from human body.
Yeah. I mean, and, perhaps consciousness is nothing, right? I mean, most people believe in a soul. And probably most people think that there's probably a lot of people think that consciousness is even possible for a computer or a program, because it's not going to have a soul. But again, there's not a shred of scientific evidence that a soul exists. It's just a concept we've had for millennia, probably to explain the extremely mysterious human consciousness that we still, even now, don't fully understand. So it may be that, consciousness is just a matter of time, right? That it's going to happen, that it will be developed, that there will be artificial general intelligence. And so it may be a question of just when and not if. Fair enough, then. I have no problem with that. I think that often that's how it is, as long as we survive and continue to progress and move forward and not, devolve, right? There's always that chance if society were to collapse, we could devolve and lose a lot of our progress. Who knows? Fall back, hundreds or thousands of years, even depending on how bad the collapse.
Jesus.
It's possible, right? If you had like a nuclear or environmental devastation that wiped out most of a good chunk of humanity. A lot of the advancements, this has happened before. Think of like Europe after Rome left in the late 400s. There was almost 1,000 years of darkness. There was so much ignorance. There was a massive decline in knowledge and technology. Arguably almost 1,000 years between then and when you had the Enlightenment.
Well, those were the like colloquially known as the Dark Ages, right?
Right. And for that reason, and and there's other stories throughout history. It's happened in countless societies. It's definitely happened in ancient China, where you've had ancient civilizations that reached great power and great technological advancement, but due to quite often corruption. Typically, this happens a lot in history. A society and a government become so powerful and successful, they eventually become corrupt, and that corruption eventually destroys the society, and they revert. They lose a lot of their wisdom. They lose a lot of their technical innovation, lost to time. So things don't always necessarily progress forward in such a steady manner. Sometimes, you could fall back. It was like there was the library in Alexandria in Egypt that was destroyed in ancient times. Is always cited as one of the great tragedies of antiquity, just because the number of the amount of knowledge that was destroyed in that one fire. Just things like that can occur. Certain events. Take your pick, whether it be nuclear war or we let climate change get out of hand, and huge swaths of the earth become uninhabitable. You think immigration's bad now, right? Right. All those people living in those places that are unlivable, they're gonna come to the temperate regions, places like the United States, places like Europe. People are bitching about immigration now. They have no idea once the water starts running out, right? So I think AI getting out of hand, especially AGI getting out of hand, is probably on that level of a potential threat. And I know maybe it sounds kooky, but like just as dangerous potentially as nuclear proliferation or climate change. Just because the complexity of cognition, the complexity of human cognition is so great. I feel like we're playing with fire. I feel honestly, all right, like building the atom bomb was like child's play in complexity to understanding how the human mind thinks and feels. Right, because they were able to do that in like 3-4 years. The Manhattan Project. They were able to develop that in a relatively short number of time. They spent a lot of money and a lot of resources, right, in the middle of a total war, right? Our society, the United States, invested pretty much everything we had to win that war, and they dumped the greatest minds, in physics and chemistry and other sciences to solve that, and they knocked it out. The pressure was on to beat fucking fascism, right? To stop Hitler, to stop the Japanese from taking over a huge chunk of the planet. And
instead we could take over the planet,
right? But I mean, yeah, fair enough. But we're not murdering like millions of people because they're because of their race. I mean, I know we're not perfect, but we're not fucking Nazi Germany, all right? We're not Germany.
It is. Yeah, no, I know. I'm sorry. I was being an ass. Please go on.
All right. So, I mean, there's different degrees of imperfection, but obviously, so moving forward, there's a lot of benefits, right? Potential benefits of AI. Massively increased efficiency in processing massive amounts of complex data, performing difficult tasks without exhaustion or injury to humans. Right?
Benefits that have already been experienced by humanity as a result of AI for the last, 70 years, effectively.
Right, but there's like a lot of this stuff is still new. It's still relatively new, right?
Well, sure.
There's a lot more to come. I mean, and the potential even to this cuts both ways. It can be good and bad to eliminate a lot of work for humans. Like AI, can be used, can replace humans in a lot of ways. Not all of them, but the more advanced AI becomes, the closer it approaches AGI, the more jobs will be, wiped out.
Well, right, but I mean, like, I feel like there's, I feel like there's still time. I mean, like, if you want to look, like, how long ago did, early, man learn how to use fire versus the development of the atomic bomb? I mean, like, by the time they started, developing the atomic bomb, like during the Manhattan Project, I mean, like we already had a pretty good understanding of what makes things explode and how to make things explode better. We'd been doing it for several hundred years by then. So, I mean, like, and also taking into consideration that things, of course, are going to be greatly accelerated because things just keep moving faster. I mean, I don't think we have hundreds of years before this is a thing, but I think we have more time to worry about, like, how to program in these fail safes as far as keeping the AI from, taking over or making, those weird, seemingly, potentially evil decisions or whatever. And as far as, I mean, like, quote unquote, artificial intelligence goes, it's been a thing that has been, already prevalent in our lives for, very much so for the last decade. But, like, even before then, I mean, there have been algorithms that, take in large amounts of data and based off that data make decisions based on your inputs, I mean, internet surveys, anything like that. I mean, like, that's a very similar concept to what we're talking about, I think. And so, I mean, I think people are used to it in that regard, and that's really more like what AI is now. Right. But when you say things like AI, people, because of pop culture and whatnot, they think of, the Terminator or
right. They think of AGI, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They think of they think of, Data from Star Trek, or they think of, the Cylons from Battlestar Galactica. I mean, like, it's really easy to drift toward, like, the sci-fi depiction of what happens with AI when AI gets very advanced, and it almost always turns into the bad guy,
Well, and so here's why that happens, because anything that's sentient, right, as far as we know, right, of a level of human consciousness is capable of evil. So we would just have to make sure that we could find a way to not do that with computers, with a computer program, right? That we find a way, if we're going to make something that is conscious, that can interact with humans and understand human emotions, that it also have a code of morality and ethics built into it that keeps it from, behaving in, destructive ways because of imperfect or incomplete programming.
Right, but, like, I feel like we keep focusing on, like, the negatives of what AI could be, like, when there are still a lot of positives that AI currently is.
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, like, it is ubiquitous. There's lots of examples, like we talked about GPT, chatbots, self-driving cars, which is still a work in progress, but that's going to happen. Even your autocorrect, right, on your email, your text, Siri, Alexa, there's robotics.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, like,
Windows
Cortana, like, all of those things, like, all of the, like, Bing. I mean, like, the Google search engine to a certain extent. I mean, like, that's all, like, those are all, like, algorithms that are programmed to give you the thing that it thinks you mean when you enter.
They're doing what you could do. They're just doing it way faster than you could do it.
Right, and but it's a niche thing. They do one thing really, really, really well. But if you said, hey Google, I need recipes. Oh, my phone just activated. I wasn't talking to you, honey. I'm sorry. Um, it,
You're on
if
the show.
if you if you said, hey, AI bot that lives in my phone, I need recipes for margaritas, you would get a bunch of different recipes for margaritas. But if you said, hey, make me a margarita, it wouldn't be able to make you a margarita. It wouldn't be able to. I mean,
Not yet.
not
That will
yet,
happen.
exactly. And it could. Yes, it could. I mean, like, or a better example, I guess, would be. Well, no, I mean, I guess no. They have gotten pretty good as far as like making a shopping list and like having all the ingredients to a margarita dropped off at your door. Dang. Okay. Okay.
So here's one that
You know what? You're right. AI is evil. We should get rid of it all.
I'm not saying it's evil. I'm not saying we should get rid of that. It's not my
Oh, I
position
am.
at all. No, what I'm
You've
saying is that
convinced me.
I think we should keep using it. I think we should keep expanding it. I think we should maximize it. But I also think there needs to be a lot more thought about the ethics, right? And risk mitigation in development of these technologies, because there's a lot of theory here. There's a lot we don't know. So that, I think, underscores the importance of taking precautions, because of we're in such a gray area. So I'm not saying don't develop AI. I'm just saying basically we have to be really aware of certain things, like, making sure that bias isn't programmed into AI systems, right? So that it's not biased against minorities.
As we have heard about with like various, there was there was some bot, I want to say it might have been Microsoft that released it, but like they basically put this chat bot out on Twitter to like talk to people, and trolls from 4chan and various other really fun websites like that turned it like racist and homophobic in a matter of hours, and they had to like take it down. Yeah. I forget, and they gave it the name of, like, they gave it a feminine name and gave it like the personality and like persona of like a teenage, like, Western European or like American girl, United States, Canada, it was a teenage white girl. Okay, I don't know how to say that without being fucking weird. They made this chatbot a teenage white girl, and then they let her loose on the internet, and were surprised when she came back racist and homophobic. And that story kind of stuck with me in just the, like, what did you think was going to happen category, like, but this is the same internet that renamed that wanted to rename that expeditionary vessel Boaty McBoatface. So I mean,
great
like,
name. Truly
well, right, which is, they didn't name the boat that, but they did in fact name their ROV that was carried on the boat that, just as kind of like a, okay, you win. But no, the internet's a terrible and scary place, and letting an AI learn from that, I'm like they even told us that was a bad idea in The Fifth Element. As soon as Lilu got to war, shit hit the fan.
Yeah, so right, I think that's the nut, really, is that AI is good. It's a good thing. And it can be used for even more good. I mean, just like nuclear power in and of itself is not a bad thing. It can be bad if it's misused, but we can also see that it's provided power, and
well, let's subcontract it to for-profit companies, and they'll make sure to regulate it correctly so that everybody's super safe, and they'll definitely take that into consideration over money.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we've got, like, there's a nuclear proliferation issue that's a big deal, right? Nuclear weapons, obviously a major concern, and also nuclear waste storage, right? But the positive side of nuclear power is it's been able to provide a tremendous amount of power for hundreds of millions of people, at relatively low cost and high efficiency. So it's like, I think AI is a similar thing where it has tremendous potential to revolutionize every aspect of our lives. And it may be decades before that happens, but it is, I think it has that level of, possibility, depending on, how much resources we use, how many resources we use, are able to dedicate towards this development. We've seen just in the past few years an explosion of like new technological advancements, just because of, partly because of AI, but in general just because of the improved computing power in general of the computers we're using. Can just process so much more data now than they could even just a few years ago. So what we might be able to accomplish is, almost unimaginable. Truly, it could, there is the potential, like down the road. I know it sounds pie in the sky, to where humans don't really have to work anymore. Right? But now, obviously, we'd have to like master robotics, which we're nowhere near right now. Right? You'd have to basically, you'd have to have, if not self-aware robots, but maybe operating on limited memory AI, but they'd still have to be, highly effective robots, which, making a robot be able to function in the real world is actually really complicated, right? To be able to do all the different tasks, right, to achieve AGI and do all this stuff like a human could do, that's just incredibly difficult.
Well, I think most of us have seen Blade Runner, so
yeah. But it's like, even if there's a lot of machines that have replaced like factory workers, and a lot of like, when you're talking about manufacturing, like cars or whatever, a lot of that's done by robots, using a certain level of AI technology. Not always, but yeah, robotics, definitely had a major impact on multiple industries, in recent decades. What will the impacts be, right, when you've got, there's just, the implications are everywhere, like, right, with Chat GPT and things like that. You've got AI that can write articles. That's that's not a good sign for writers. That's writers should be nervous, right?
Well, as has been reflected in the current writers and actors strikes, if we want to date this broadcast,
right? Yeah, that their contracts, right, the way they're compensated needs to keep pace with the technology, and yeah, AI is giving a major advantage to the studios, right, and them being able to reap more of the profits. The way contracts are currently structured, these people, if they do the work, they need to be paid, for their work, a living wage, a good salary for the work that they've done, the contribution to your production. They deserve to share in that profit. So, yeah, that's the thing where it's going to affect every industry, whether it be the entertainment industry, right? Because you're going to have people that are, bots, right, that are generated, have that already, that are online, right? And you're going to have all these different, potentially creating, programs creating their own music. And I don't know, I think we're a long way away. I have my concerns about AI, and that, like, it's still making a lot of mistakes, and I've read a lot of articles from AI programs. I don't think they're very good.
Well, right, and that's what I'm saying, is that, like,
there's a lot of mistakes.
They're still so far away from something beyond. I mean, even when you program something for deep learning, something like ChatGPT that can, compile tons of information off the internet and then sift through all of that and give it the closest approximation to what it thinks you want. It doesn't actually think that's what you want. It's not actually thinking. It is performing a program that you've programmed it to do. I mean, like, it's not a sentient thing, and like I still feel like we're so far away from that. And that's where the danger comes, is when we create a new life form. And that's and that's what it is I mean, like, all the all the sci-fi stuff, all of the just like all of that, the horror that comes from oh no, the machines are taking over, is,
I don't know.
I feel like is so. I mean, just because, I mean, like, even if it's like programmed so redundantly that like it does all of the things that mimics life so well, I don't know that it would still actually be like a living thing. I mean, like, you can program something to learn, but I don't. You can program something to learn and extrapolate data, but I don't think you can program something to like think and imagine the way thinking and imagination works in like a human, or like an organic, like, animal, made out of bacon fat and electricity brain.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they're trying to mimic it. They're trying to copy it, right? And that's what a lot of these neural networks, AI systems that use these neural networks, they're basing it off of human decision making and human decision making systems within inside the brain. So I think there's knowledge there, but I also think it's limited. But I mean, I think we got to move forward with the technology. I think it's the potential for good is the sky's the limit. It has a potential to improve performance across basically any industry or aspect of life if it's applied properly. I think a lot of times AI is probably used best for example, in an advisory role. Okay, like, good for scheduling appointments and things like that. Not so good at answering simple questions. Not so good at answering complex, multi-layered questions.
Right. Yeah. The whole thinking outside the box.
But right, that depends on the advanced level of that program. Some things are programmed better than others, right? The better the programming gets, the more competent, the more capable those things will be, even if they're not sentient, even if they're not still self-aware, if they're not properly designed, but sufficiently powerful, they could still present a danger, even if they don't have a sense of self-awareness or a programmed need for self-protection, right? They may not act out of any sense of fear or self-defense, but simply act based on faulty programming that was just put in, imperfectly, and it reaches a decision that we could not anticipate because the process is so complex, right? Similar to our own, right? That there's so many interactions and inputs going on, every millisecond, that it's very difficult to isolate what are the determining factors.
Well, right, but I mean, like, in those cases, I still feel like they're at the point now where they still have the availability, as far as just like being like, oh man, this is going all sorts of wrong all over the place, let's turn it off, and they can still just kind of like go in and go boop, and right. and now it's turned off, and now we're working on the programming, and we're going to figure out where we missed the decimal point, or moved it 2 spaces to the right where we shouldn't have.
So yeah, and I think that's.
I don't think it's at the point where it's not shielded from where, like, even if it does start to go horribly wrong, like the programmers of it couldn't at least shut it down for diagnostics, if not like correct it while it was still I mean, like, it's one thing to be able to like go in there your super hacker skills and change its mind while it's mid, quote unquote thought. But I mean, like, what another thing that I think we're a long, long way away from is it being able to shield itself from, that the backdoor programming access, from its developers to get in there and go, okay, now you're in sleep mode and we're figuring out what went wrong here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of safeguards that we can build in and should build in. I think it's just that there is also anything that has great power for good also has great power for evil, right? It's a double-edged sword. It can cut.
You're right, Uncle Ben.
Anything that's as powerful as like AI or AGI, anything revolutionary like that has that amount of transformational power. That transformation can go both ways. Like, if it's done right, it could benefit 8 billion people in unimaginable ways. If it's done wrong,
it'll benefit the same 20 guys it's been benefiting for the last 50 years.
Right. But like, take it to like a whole worse level.
Oh, perfect.
Like, take oppression to like, take oppression to like a supernatural, superhuman level. Like, it will be like if something achieved AGI and then had like, incredible, abilities.
History will tell you there's nothing to bolster your oppression without thinking that you're superhuman. So,
right, but a program that actually has superhuman capabilities, that's not kept in check, that's not reined in, that doesn't have the right necessary controls and protections, even if it's not sentient, even if it's not self-aware. If it has great power, it could just misbehave by accident, right? Thinking it's doing the right thing, or doing what it's supposed to do, but the programming's off, and so it makes a bad decision that, maybe cuts off water to, hundreds of thousands of people, makes some kind of decision, decides,
yeah.
We do have AI systems like in the military, right? Like if you had an AI system in the military that, had faulty programming, it could make, the wrong decisions and fire on people that it shouldn't be fired upon.
Which has happened. And and no, that is a good point though, as far as like, I mean, like, how do you program those things, when you're programming it to, it's like, we need to get water to as many people as possible. And if the program decides like, well, okay, well, if we just like stop giving water to Belgium, everybody else will have plenty.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So that, which would obviously be a problem, especially in Belgium.
Yeah. And well, that's the thing. It's like AI and the potential AGI. I mean, it's going to work a lot better if you have ethical, decent people in charge of it. But not everybody is ethical. Decent.
Sorry.
There's some evil ass people like in charge of countries out there.
There's one in charge of my bank account.
What the hell's going on there? I don't want North Korea with advanced AI abilities, and definitely not AGI, right? Or China or Russia for that matter. There's a lot of countries I can think of, right? And
well, I can't imagine the U.S. military using that for good, because they'd be the first ones with their hands on it. Like,
oh yeah, I mean, the Defense Department's been working on AI since the 70s. So, I mean, which you would expect. I would want them to, right? Because other countries are. It would be, from a defense standpoint, it would be negligent if they didn't.
Well, sure. Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure Kubrick had to, submit all his papers about HAL to them after he directed the fake moon landing anyway. So.
Oh no. Here we go. It's another show. We're not going there.
There.
But I think that's my key point. Is I'm not a Luddite. I don't think we shouldn't do it, but I don't trust. I don't trust us either, right? I'm not of that attitude that it's going to be okay. Don't worry, you know. We'll sort it all out. It's like, yeah, we'll sort it all out after we screw it up, right?
Well, yeah, that's what we do, baby.
But
USA, USA.
Yeah, but it's not just USA; it's just humanity.
Well, yeah, no, true. No, that's very true, and it's been proven time and time
resources right now. Yeah, it's just right now we have the most resources to make the most mistakes. It'll be somebody else down the road.
Yes, quite.
But I mean, that's the thing. Every great. I'm not going to go off on that tangent. We'll talk about that in the show. But that, yeah, any great power, comes at a price. Not only a price, but like obviously the price is a lot of money, right? It takes a lot of money, a lot of time to develop this stuff, a lot of experimentation, a lot of trial and error. But also the potential for it to be misused. Or to be used recklessly, carelessly, using a new tool, a powerful tool that we create, that if something is of that advanced level of learning, whether it achieves full AGI or not, that if it is at an advanced level of learning, like, how will we even be able to control that once it reaches a certain level where it's just learning on its own? Right, which is what machine learning is. Like you program it to learn, and then it learns based off the programming you give it, and continues to learn on its own. If that goes to next level, and we don't even understand right now the interactions of what's happening inside. I say do it. I just say be careful about it, and I don't be too trusting, because I think there's too many companies working on it. There's also going to be governments, right, that are working on it. Not all of them as benevolent as the United States.
Oh no!
Right, but. But I mean, even companies or even billionaires, you think about the amount of money that someone like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos has, they have enough money on their own, right? That they could, people like that, people of extreme wealth, they have the potential to fund that development pretty much on their own if they wanted to, and are to some degree are attempting to do that anyway. So people of that total, like, I have zero trust in any billionaire, any single human, period, right? Because they're just a person who can make all kinds of incredible mistakes, because that's what people do. And it doesn't matter how smart you are. We've seen them all. Everybody, no matter how brilliant, make really dumb decisions at some point, because people, we're all just part of the ape family, right? And no matter how smart you are, you're not smart about everything, right? Everybody makes mistakes.
Boy, howdy.
Right? Yeah. I know. I'm an expert in this. I know very well.
Yeah.
So then, like, I guess my concern is, like, if we are mimicking human cognition, do we not end up also programming in the flaws of human cognition to AI and AGI, right? To where potentially we even accidentally program in our own downfall, right? That we, because of our arrogance, we don't program in the necessary restraints and constraints within the programming, right? Like, let's talk about our own personal morality for a second, right? Your own sense of ethics and right or wrong. That's been programmed into you, hopefully, right? From, society, from your parents, from school, from different influences, throughout your life, have taught you lessons about how to be, how to interact with other people, how to behave. After all these years, you've processed all this information, right? And you have this programming that's been built up over all these years. I think in many ways, even still, as much as complex as we are, right? I mean, humans are for now certainly of infinite more complexity than any computer program, right? So now we're going to map that to a computer, right? To a computer program. My concern is that it's just we should do it, but it's just we really need to have some humility, right, about what we're messing with here.
Absolutely.
Because if something like the power of consciousness, or extreme advanced use of reason, with without the right safeguards, it is the potential for disaster, whether that be nuclear war, or even just if it's not AGI, let's eliminate humanity, or let's control humanity and make humanity serve us type of thing, right? Where it enslaves humanity, or even just there's a potential to where we misuse it ourselves, right? And we have AI do everything for us, and we become a race of sloths, right? That we only live to fill our stomachs and satisfy our sexual urges, right? And our lowest impulses, too spoiled from the success, right? That it's sometimes you take a win and you turn it into a loss, right? you you celebrate too much, right? You take it too far, and it ends up it ends up going the other way. I think the potential is here to it could. I mean, this could be one of those things that changes the total future of humanity for the better, right? In every aspect. I mean, just one more aspect that they're using it for now, in colonoscopy screenings. I was reading about this, that they have an AI program that basically looks at the same stuff that the same images that the doctor is looking at from the exam, right? But they're programmed in to identify certain patterns and look for certain things that the doctor might miss. And it's just a good system to double check the doctor, right? That it's picking up on different polyps and things inside the colon, right? That the doctor may not see. And because it's a computer, and it can do a lot more things a lot more quickly. It could pick up on a lot of stuff the doctor doesn't see. Now, the doctor still makes all the decisions, right? The AI doesn't make any calls based on what it's seeing. The doctor has to look at it and has to say, "Oh no, that's not what you think it is. No, that's something I didn't see that." But that example that has been used, and it's in colonoscopy screenings, AI has been used to a much more accurate results that result in a lot fewer false negatives. Because you can go get a colonoscopy done. I haven't had one done. I need to get my ass in there and get one done.
Literally.
Yeah, literally, right? And not. I don't want to, but it's something you got to do. But they can do that. They can see, they can pick up on things, and that other people that the doctor may not see, and it's just a good double check. But yeah, it reduced the false negatives, considerably. It was a major reduction. So I think systems like that, where you have AI is not making the final call, right? But it's functioning more as an assistant to the human who makes the final decision, right? The human expert, the human in charge who's making the final decision, makes the final decision, but they're assisted, right, by AI. And I think that's in a lot of ways, that's sort of the appropriate function, right? I think that applies too, even for like a lot of the generative AI that's out there now. Let's say with a lot of the articles that are being written that look like garbage, that look like they were written by you know a C student, a C junior high student, not well written, errors, just not interesting, kind of embarrassing. Yeah, I haven't been that impressed with the AI writing that I've seen at all. But I know it's just getting started, right? It's gonna get a lot better. But I think if you have programs like that are sort of highlighting things, it's just like autocorrect, right? Where it's hopefully it's telling you, without actually correcting for you, right? That it's giving you the recommendation and saying, do you want this? And giving you the choice versus just automatically doing it without checking with you. So I think that's one of the ways that you can sort of more safely use it is where you're using this AI as sort of like a supplement, right? But it's, you're always going to have a conscious human in the end that has to make the decision. It's not going to be AI that makes the final call. AI is just, another set of eyes, right? Another set of extremely advanced capable eyes that can pick up on things the human can't. Those things it's picking up on may or may not be what it thinks it is, but that's why you have the human making the final decision. So anyway, I guess the bottom line, I think, is, in my opinion, we need a lot of government involvement. Obviously, libertarians aren't going to like to hear that, or Republicans for that matter, right? The government is evil and all government is bad, which we know is nonsense because you can't have a functioning society without government. And government are made of people who are imperfect, so they make mistakes. That's just every human organization that's ever existed. But we need governments to, have laws to keep us from just murdering and raping each other and acting like, out of control lunatics that we basically behave like when we don't have laws. And they're going to have to be the ones that make sure that very powerful companies don't get out of hand, right? Or that an extremely wealthy billionaire doesn't develop AGI by himself. One of the people I was reading from that was concerned, one of the AI scientists that was concerned about its development being happening too rapidly and carelessly, was saying his main concern was we only have to get it wrong once. It just takes one time for something to achieve a certain level of power, not properly programmed to get out of control, to cause unspeakable harm potentially. And it just takes it. We just have to get it wrong once, and something that can like use Moore's law, some program that just learns and advances exponentially faster and faster, could quickly outpace any solution we might have to try and bring it to bear. So it's like something we've got to stay on top of, because if it gets ahead of us, there may not be much chance of us to catch up. I mean, if we do create something that does get out of control, we might not get a second chance to rein it back in. You would like to think that they'd program in all these fail-safes and things, but we also know how people are. We're imperfect. Even the smartest people miss things, right? Don't build things perfectly. Everything in nature breaks down anyway, right? That's the principle of entropy, right? From the second law of thermodynamics. Right? Every complex structure in existence must break down to its more simpler structure. Everything breaks down. Everything falls apart. So there we are. So, but yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, pretty good, pretty interesting conversation. I'm excited about AI. I want to see where it goes. I really do.
As do I.
Huh?
As do I.
Yeah, definitely. I want it to make my life easier. we'll see. We'll see about the sex robot. You know, have to give that time. Have to give that time. I'm not quite there yet.
Most likely not as much time as it'll take for everything else, but yeah.
Right. That'll probably be the first thing. That's what crosses the sentience line first will be the sex robot.
Right.
So anyway, on that note, thank you everyone for joining us tonight, discussing this fascinating topic of artificial intelligence and artificial general intelligence. I hope it's been beneficial to you. I've enjoyed it, and I thank you for joining us, Jordan. Thanks again, as always. It's always fun conversing with you and discussing. A wonderful conversationalist. Always a pleasure.
Pleasure as always, my friend. Thank you.
So our next episode of the breakdown is going to be a surprise. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's something special that we got cooking up, and I'm really excited to serve it to you here soon. So big surprise episode coming up here in not too distant future. So be ready for that. Thanks again for joining us, and look forward to talking with you again soon. Take care. Bye.